Tonight, the growing pressure on Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, the new internal investigation finding he could have put troops at risk when he used a group chat for war plans, as questions mount about those strikes in the Caribbean. President Trump late today saying he's willing to release video of that controversial second strike in the Caribbean, what the video could reveal, and the new focus on what Hegseth previously told soldiers about ignoring legal advice about the rules of engagement. Also tonight, never before seen images of Jeffrey Epstein's private island, a room with a dentist chair and masks on the wall, and what was written on a chalkboard in the compound. Danger in the sky, a jet erupting into a fireball, the pilot forced to eject and use the emergency parachutes. The first sentencing and the tragic death of actor Matthew Perry. How long the doctor who gave ketamine to the Friend star will spend behind bars. The self-driving car debate taking a turn. Our conversation with a neurosurgeon who says widespread adoption would make roads safer, despite a recent string of driverless vehicle mishaps. Party animal, the drunken raccoon, going viral after he broke into a liquor store and drank the night away. The newly obtained surveillance video of his boozy burglary. And tonight we celebrate the annual Christmas tree lighting here at Rockefeller Center. Our conversation with the man responsible for picking the perfect tree ahead of tonight's show. Plus, did you get your Spotify Wrapped? I'll walk you through mine and break down the top music trends of the year. Top Story starts right now. And good evening. We begin tonight with two major stories developing, the Trump administration and the Pentagon at the center of it all. Moments ago, President Trump saying he's willing to release video of that controversial second strike in the Caribbean back in September as bipartisan criticism of that double tap on the alleged drug boat mounts. The president also warning attacks on land in Venezuela will come, quote, very soon. The announcement coinciding with another major controversy swirling around Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth after an 8-month investigation by the Defense Department Inspector General into his use of the app Signal to share details of planned U.S. strikes in Yemen. The report finding Hegseth shared secret information on the app, which is encrypted, but not a secure government messaging app that could have put American troops in danger. It also found that he violated military regulations by using his personal phone for official business. That, according to two people who have read the report. The White House defending Hegseth, saying no classified info was leaked. Gabe Gutierrez has been following it all from the White House and leads us off tonight.
Facing calls from Democrats to release more video of this controversial strike against an alleged cartel boat smuggling drugs into the U.S., tonight President Trump saying his administration would.
I don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem.
It comes amid bipartisan backlash to that double-tap airstrike near Venezuela on September 2nd. 2 people survived the initial attack, but Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth yesterday told me he did not personally see the survivors and had moved on to another meeting while Admiral Frank Bradley ordered a second strike that killed all on board. President Trump tonight.
So to be clear, you support the decision to kill survivors after the initial
No, I
strike?
support the decision to knock out the boats, and whoever is piloting those boats, most of them are gone. But whoever are piloting those boats, they're guilty of trying to kill people in our country.
Also tonight, there's new scrutiny on a passage in Hegseth's 2024 book where he described a briefing from lawyers to his troops in Iraq, afterwards telling his platoon to ignore legal advice that they could not shoot and kill an enemy combatant with a rocket-propelled grenade unless it was pointed at them. Hegseth says he told them, "I will not allow that nonsense to filter into your brains. Men, if you see an enemy who you believe is a threat, you engage and destroy the threat." Meanwhile, a new Pentagon Inspector General report finding the information Hegseth shared on a group Signal chat in March about a pending military operation in Yemen was considered secret. 2 people who have read the report tell NBC News, adding that had the information been intercepted by a foreign adversary, it would have imperiled American troops. The watchdog report delivered to Congress also concluded Hegseth violated military regulations by using his personal phone for office business, though saying Hegseth had the power to declassify intelligence, according to the sources who read the findings.
And Gabe joins us tonight from the White House. Gabe, what are we hearing tonight from the administration on that IG report?
Well, Tom, they have a very different interpretation. A Pentagon spokesman calling it a total exoneration. And the White House also saying it affirms no classified information was leaked and that operational security was not compromised, adding the president stands by Secretary Hegseth, Tom.
Yeah, Gabe, and as a reminder to our viewers, you pointed out there in the story, the man who ordered that second strike in the Caribbean, Admiral Frank Bradley, is expected to brief Congress tomorrow. What can we expect?
Yeah, that's right, Tom. According to lawmakers and 3 sources familiar with the planning, Admiral Bradley will brief top leaders of the House and Senate Armed Services and Intelligence Committees. Now, more lawmakers want to talk to him as well, and it's possible there could be another classified briefing to more lawmakers potentially next week, although the timing for that is still being worked out. Now, Democrats and Republicans, some Republicans anyway, had been asking for that video of that second strike and audio to be released. And again, it was significant today that the president, when asked about that, said that he was willing to release that video. No timetable for when that might happen, Tom.
Okay. Thanks, Gabe. And for the first time, we're getting a look inside Jeffrey Epstein's infamous home in the Virgin Islands. Today, House Democrats released the never-before-seen photos and video, which are part of the congressional investigation to Epstein. Here's NBC's Ryan Nobles.
Tonight, newly revealed video and photos providing an inside look at the infamous Epstein Island, the estate in the Virgin Islands where sex offender Jeffrey Epstein allegedly took many of his victims. The images do not show any people, but do provide a detailed view of some of the rooms inside. One furnished with a dentist chair and the walls adorned with masks. Another shows a library. Power, music, and deception can be seen written on a blackboard, but other words have been blacked out. The photos and video released by Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, who also redacted parts of the images, also show bathrooms, bedrooms, and a pool area. Steve Scully worked there and spoke to NBC News in 2019, but said he had no idea if underage girls were on the island.
I have no way of knowing that, truly, but they appeared to be young to me.
The new image is part of a slow trickle of information related to the late financier.
These are just disturbing images, never seen before images of what Jeffrey's Island and the estate actually look like.
The Oversight Committee says it has received bank records related to Epstein and expect to release that information soon. But Congress is still waiting for the Department of Justice to release its investigative files after Congress overwhelmingly passed a bill despite pushback from the White House to force their release. The president ultimately signed the bill into law.
All right, Ryan Nobles joins us tonight. Ryan, people are going to see these photos and want to know more about them. Are we going to see more releases like this? And where do they actually come from?
Yeah, so this is part of a batch of more than 150 images that the House Oversight Committee released, the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee released. It's part of their broad investigation looking into the Epstein controversy. Of course, this is something that they got from the Department of Justice in the Virgin Islands. So they've been making requests to the Epstein estate. That's where we saw those emails that were released not too long ago. And of course, there is that information that they're still looking for from the U.S. Department of Justice, which they are compelled to release after the House and Senate voted to demand the release of that information. We still haven't got that yet. Yeah. So any of the stuff that we're seeing up until now, Tom, this is coming from places other than the U.S. Department of Justice.
And then we also have some news on Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's former partner. She's making another new push to get out of prison.
Yeah, this has been very controversial. Of course, she was in prison in Florida. She was moved to a different prison camp in Texas. And some critics say that the situation there is a lot cushier than it was in Florida. We knew through a whistleblower to the House Democrats on the Oversight Committee that she had planned to ask President Trump for a commutation of her sentence. We now have a formal recognition in a court of law, her lawyer sending a letter to a court here in Manhattan requesting and letting them know that she plans to file a petition for her release from prison. It's not clear exactly what ground she believes that she should be released from prison since she was convicted and sentenced to this 20-year sentence, but we should expect that to come very soon. Ghislaine Maxwell asking to get out of jail.
Okay, big headline there. Ryan, we thank you. Now to the dramatic video out of California showing the moment an F-16 fighter pilot ejected as his jet plunges to the ground. You can see the pilot in this video actually dangling from his parachute in Southern California there on the left hand of your screen. NBC's Morgan Chesky has been following this developing story from Los Angeles. Morgan, the pilot, part of the Air Force's famed Thunderbirds demonstration team. What do we know about their condition tonight?
Yeah, Tom, as far as that pilot's condition goes, we do know that he was able to safely eject from that F-16 prior to that fiery impact on the ground. He's currently listed in stable condition at a nearby hospital, and authorities say that he is recovering with non-life-threatening injuries. Incredible when you consider just the sheer event of what took place, and you see that fiery plume happening there in the California desert, that parachute off to the left of the screen showing that pilot safely landing there in this controlled airspace that was near Trona, California, which, as you can see, is a relatively remote area there, Tom.
Yeah, and this area that you're talking about there near Death Valley, a common place for low-level flight training across the armed forces.
Tom, it is, and not just for the Air Force, but also the Navy. And we've learned that this pilot actually took off near Las Vegas and was flying over this desert area, conducting what was been described as a training mission when this took place. Back in 2019, a Navy pilot was actually killed flying through what's known as Star Wars Canyon, relatively near where this incident took place. There were also several tourists that were injured following that impact there. That was an incredibly low altitude flight. We still don't know the altitude of this particular plane, where it was flying, what this specific training mission entailed. That's all part of the ongoing investigation here, Tom.
Yeah, and we've talked about and seen those training missions, as you've been talking about, that Navy jet colliding with the wall of a nearby canyon. I think that was 2019, from what we remember. It's just, these are machines of war. They go so fast, and they can be incredibly dangerous at times.
They can be, but it's important to note that when you look at the F-16s as a whole, this is an aircraft that has been used by the United States military for decades. It is considered one of their primary workhorses here. Despite the incidents that we've seen in the past, it does have a strong safety record. Of course, they're going to be going through this particular flight piece by piece to try to understand what took place. Also important to note here, Tom, that if you are a member of this aerobatic squadron, these are some of the best here. They are the Air Force equivalent of the Navy's Blue Angels. And so this pilot was well-versed in handling this aircraft. And unfortunately, again, they were able to safely eject in time. And now, hopefully, investigators can figure out just what went awry inside that multi-million-dollar jet. Tom?
Yeah, I've had a chance to fly with the Thunderbirds, Morgan. They are incredible, and you're right. They are some of the best pilots in the Air Force. Morgan, we thank you for that. We're also following immigration crackdowns in two major cities tonight. ICE enforcement operations now underway in Minneapolis as President Trump doubles down on his inflammatory comments about the large Somali community in that city. And in New Orleans, a DHS operation just launched. NBC's Maggie Vespa is on the ground in Minnesota tonight.
Tonight, a senior law enforcement official telling NBC News ICE has begun enforcement operations in Minneapolis, all as President Trump is doubling down on his comments railing against the Somali community here, the largest in the U.S.
The Somalians should be out of here. They've destroyed our country.
Minneapolis City Councilman Jamal Osman was born in Somalia.
How did it hit you when you heard what the president had to say?
You know, the saddest part for me was just trying to answer my daughters and saying that why are we being singled out?
I won't answer any more questions.
Okay. Can you put handcuffs on him, please?
While Border Patrol tonight is also launching a crackdown on illegal immigration in New Orleans, administration officials say ICE in Minneapolis is not targeting the Somali community, but just enforcing deportation orders already issued by judges.
We're going to enforce the laws of this country without apology, including in the Twin Cities. Focuses on those Twin Cities more because of the criminal activities been uncovered by DOJ and DHS.
Federal prosecutors have charged dozens of people in Minnesota's Somali community for allegedly stealing hundreds of millions of dollars in taxpayer money, including from government programs meant to give meals to low-income children.
This beautiful place, and I see these people ripping it off. You don't want them in our country. Let them go back to where they came from and fix it.
But this son of Somali immigrants, who doesn't want to give his name, says the president is creating fear and unfairly blaming the whole community.
Other people hearing that, you know, they're going to really use that to come at us. That's what I'm really scared of.
Maggie Vespa joins us tonight from the Twin Cities. Maggie, the city's police chief has a pointed message to the residents there.
Yeah, Tom, definitely. The police chief here in Minneapolis telling residents, get this, to call 911 if they come in contact with masked agents. He said some people have reported that they're scared because they can't tell whether or not those masked agents, those masked people, are indeed law enforcement. So that was his advice. Border Czar Tom Homan hitting back, calling the idea shameful of calling 911 on officers. Tom.
Okay, Maggie Vespa. Maggie, thank you. Tonight, millions across the country bracing for bitter temperatures as a brutal Arctic blast of cold air makes its way down from Canada. Several states also bracing for more snowfall, and NBC News meteorologist Bill Cairns is tracking it all. Bill, we could be seeing some record lows over the next few days.
Yeah, Thursday morning and Friday morning. Now, typically we get big snowstorms in December, and then it warms up a little bit and melts kind of quickly. Not this time. I mean, this snow is, going to settle in and be here for a while, and it's all because of this brutal blast that's building in Canada and going to head our way. I'm sure Big Trout Lake is a beautiful place in the middle of summer, but right now it's negative 42-degree wind chill. So all of this cold air in central Canada is heading down to the U.S. It's not going to be as cold. It's going to moderate a little bit by the time it gets here, but it's still going to be brutal. We're already at -4 wind chill in Minneapolis, and tomorrow morning will be worse. The actual air temperature in some areas will be in the negative teens. So it's all because this Arctic cold front. Right now it's heading through Detroit. Tomorrow it slides through the Northeast. There's not a lot of snow with it. There'll be a little bit of lake effect at typical areas if you're driving near Buffalo or Syracuse. But these are all the spots that have a chance of record lows. These are all the same spots that have snow on the ground that helps keep the cold air right down at the surface. So Chicago tomorrow morning could have a record low, and then a few areas in the east also as we go into Friday. So how cold tomorrow? The bus stop weather's not fun in Des Moines. -10 with a wind chill of -17, -14 in the Quad Cities. Chicago, -9 wind chill tomorrow morning. So that's like peak of winter cold where you got all the winter gear on. And in the Northeast, it's not quite as bad Friday morning, but easily the coldest we've had so far this season. Temperatures in the 20s. Won't be that windy, so it's not going to be all that bad. So, it's here to stay, though, Tom. After this, we have another cold blast coming Monday to Tuesday to next week. There's no new snowstorms, at least, for these areas.
I hope the kids are all listening to you out there when they don't want to bring in their gloves on Friday to school. Real quick, how's it going to be tonight for that tree lighting?
Yeah, the tree lighting actually looks fine. I mean, 35 degrees, and it's no wind whatsoever. Kind of a nice mood, no flurries or anything like that, but it's going to stay pretty nice. The only storm that we have to worry about on the map is the one that's hitting Colorado. Denver picked up 6 inches of snow. This snow is heading south, and it's going to be moving down towards Pueblo and southwards into New Mexico later on tonight. So I-25 is by far the worst drive out there on the map, and we could see an additional around Taos and Santa Fe areas could get another 6 inches of snow out of this. But as I mentioned, once we get done with this, there's not a lot of other big storms on the map as we head towards the upcoming weekend. We get a little break from our early winter season.
Those skiers will get some early runs, though. All right, Bill, we thank you for that. Now to an emotional day in Los Angeles. Matthew Perry's family coming face-to-face with a doctor who prescribed the actor ketamine before his fatal overdose. Today, that doctor was sentenced to 2.5 years in prison. Here's Camila Bernal with what Perry's family, including our own Keith Morrison, had to say.
In court today, prosecutors called former Dr. Salvador Plasencia a drug dealer in a white coat. Then a judge sentenced him to 2.5 years in prison after he pleaded guilty to illegally selling beloved Friends star Matthew Perry large amounts of ketamine in the weeks leading up to his overdose. Perry's mother today addressed Plasencia, saying he failed to keep the oath he took as a doctor. She also asked him to look at her as a mother. "It's a bad thing you did," she said. He looked at her and nodded. Plasencia also spoke today, acknowledging he failed Mr. Perry, failed his family, failed the community. Eventually turning around to look at Perry's family, saying, "I'm just so sorry." During sentencing, the judge pointed to previously released text messages between Plasencia and another doctor. "I wonder how much this moron will pay," he wrote, and "let's find out." In a letter to the court, Perry's mom and stepfather, Dateline's Keith Morrison, slammed greedy jackals who took advantage of the actor, calling the doctor the most culpable of all. Perry spoke openly about his addiction, and his family discussed it with NBC News last year.
I have found a huge amount of meaning in thinking about the fact that this isn't our tragedy. This happens to people every day.
Camila Bernal joins us tonight from outside that court in Los Angeles. Camila, what more do we know about the cases of the 4 other people charged?
Yeah, Tom. So the 4 other people charged also accepted plea deals, and they are expected to be sentenced in the coming months. 2 of them in December. That includes the so-called ketamine queen and the other doctor, and then 2 others in January, and that includes Matthew Perry's personal assistant. But when we're talking about the fact of being provided ketamine, the judge here today said the difference in this case, in the Salvador Plasencia case, was that he actually had a relationship with Matthew Perry, and the judge judge in this case saying, look, you were expected to have a patient-doctor relationship, and instead this was about dealing drugs. Tom?
Okay, Camila Bernal, before we go, there was also, we know, as you mentioned, such an emotional testimony from the family today, and our thoughts, of course, are with Keith and his family. What else did they say?
Yeah, the siblings were really emotional as they gave their statements, and also as that sentence was being read, you could hear one of the siblings sobbing when the 30 months in prison was read. But in general, they spoke about how difficult it's been to lose Matthew Perry, to lose a member of their family, saying that the holidays are not the same without him, that they miss the way that he made them laugh and really made the whole country laugh. One of his siblings, the youngest, saying that celebrities are not just dolls that you can mess around with and play with. She said, look, celebrities are people too, and she lost her brother. And again, extremely emotional testimony as they really described the impact that this doctor had on their lives. The doctor, as I mentioned in the piece, did turn around. He faced them directly and apologized and essentially admitted to what he'd done to this family. Tom.
Okay, Camila, thank you. We are back in a moment tonight with police in Delaware arresting a man who they say had plans for a potential violent attack on campus. What we're learning about the suspect tonight. Plus the growing questions over self-driving cars and whether they're actually safe on the road. Why one neurosurgeon is calling the vehicles a public health breakthrough. We'll talk to him. And a mass burglar causing chaos inside of a Virginia liquor store. How this raccoon went on a drunken rampage before passing out on the bathroom floor. We'll tell you what he had to drink. That's next. We're back now with that story that has taken social media by storm. Images of a raccoon passed out inside of a state-run Virginia liquor store after it went on a bit of a bender and trashed the place. Turns out it's not the first time something like this has happened in the area. NBC's George Solis has this one.
Right on that shelf, a now infamous raccoon taking one of the first tumbles of what would be a wild night. Video obtained by NBC News shows the critter inside a Virginia liquor store. Then, as it makes its way down the aisle and scampers around the broken bottles it knocked over, the aftermath going viral. A trashed panda splayed out next to a trash can and toilet, like that one person that maybe had one too many at the holiday party. It all unfolding in Ashland, Virginia over the Thanksgiving weekend.
I was just like, that is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
At least he got to the bathroom when he passed out.
According to the Virginia Alcoholic Beverage Control Authority, the masked bandit dropped in from the store ceiling, drunky raccoon, then checked into the room only to find lots of boozy bottles. The damage? 14 bottles worth about $250. If you're wondering how a raccoon wets its whistle, this particular one appeared to have a taste for rum, scotch, moonshine, peanut butter whiskey, and eggnog. Security was alerted, which prompted a search of the store and the comical reveal once the officer arrived.
When she told me at first, I thought she was apprehending a human subject. And I'm like, we don't do that.
The raccoon was then transported to an animal shelter so it could sober up.
Just looking at this raccoon being so lethargic, laying there, the officer stated the eyes were moving back and forth, and just kind of, okay, telltale signs that he's probably been a little drinking. So
more than likely would have failed the field sobriety test.
More than likely, the officer said she had no problem picking the raccoon up.
The shelter posting the aftermath on Facebook, and the rest is drunk history.
That's kind of things we deal with on a regular basis. Not saying that in a liquor store raccoons are, but we deal with raccoons every day.
He's right. It's happened more than once. Turns out about a year ago at this neighboring martial arts studio, they encountered a raccoon break-in as well. These are images from that encounter.
It was up in the crawl space, like in the ceiling, and it went through in our break room, and it got into all of our snacks. It was all over the place.
Staff says likely not the same raccoon, but wouldn't be surprised if it is. As for this party animal, animal protection officials say after a night in the drunk tank, and because it was showing no sign of injury, aside a potential hangover, it was released back into the wild.
All right, George Solis joins us tonight from Miami. George, it sounds like a lot of people are obviously getting a kick out of this. I understand some of the other businesses in that area are getting in on the fun.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. Just when you think you've seen it all. So some of those Virginia ABC stores are actually putting up on display the same bottles that raccoon broke there in front of the stores so people can drink like a raccoon. And if you think they're done, absolutely not. One company there in the state actually making a T-shirt labeled Trashed Panda. There it is there that you can buy. And all the proceeds go to that shelter there. A lot of good fun. I've never tried peanut butter whiskey, but this raccoon, hey, you know what? There's some intrigue here, so that's at least something we can look forward to, perhaps, Tom.
And George, you have some new reporting for us too that the drunk raccoon was later spotted at Taco Bell as well.
Yeah, that's tomorrow's follow-up.
All right, we look forward to that one. Okay, George, thank you, man. Still ahead on Top Story, the massive recall for thousands of bags of cheese sold at grocery stores across the country. What you need to know tonight. But first, Top Story's top moment and the emotional send-off for a Sacramento sports legend, Del Rogers from our NBC affiliate KCRA, retiring after 28 years as the station's sports director. In his final night on air, the former NFL running back and Super Bowl champ with the Niners had this message about what he called the most important part of his job.
You know, during the last 28 years here at KCRA, I covered professional sports because I had to, but I also covered high school sports because I needed to. You see, high school sports is a backbone to our community. Tonight, I hang up my mic, but I'll never hang up on what you've given me. Thank you for letting me be a part of your fields, your courts, and your kids' lives.
Beautiful words there by Del Rogers. He was joined by his family on set. KCRA says that Del will be missed, not only in the newsroom, but by the community, and his impact will continue to be felt. All right, stay with us. More news on the way. We're back now with a potentially violent attack on a college in Delaware, thwarted after police say they confronted a man and found rounds of ammunition in his car and detailed plans for an attack in his home. Sam Brock has more on the police work that appears to have saved lives.
Police in Delaware may have prevented catastrophe after finding this University of Delaware student, Luqman Khan, inside his truck in a park after hours last week. Officers patrolling the area initiated a traffic stop. Khan was uncooperative and armed, they say, with a loaded Glock handgun, more than 100 rounds of ammunition, and an armored ballistic plate, as well as a notebook that, according to the federal complaint, states his desire to be a, quote, martyrer, naming a member of the University of Delaware Police Department as a target. Battle efficiency, kill all, martyrdom, all combatants, he wrote.
The fact that martyrdom was invoked, does that add another chilling dimension to this story?
I'll tell you, as you peel back every layer of this, it gets more and more chilling. What I truly believe is a cold individual with no regret for human life.
The FBI says Khan is a naturalized American citizen from Pakistan, with Newcastle police telling NBC News he traveled back and forth recently. His notebook also contained a drawing of a University of Delaware building with entry and exit points, prompting the FBI to search Khan's home, where they say they uncovered more weaponry and a device that converts handguns to machine guns, stunning neighbors.
It scared the bejeebies out of me.
The 25-year-old now facing state and federal charges. He has not yet entered a plea, as the Wilmington community is grateful.
This is the type of work that law enforcement across the country does every day.
Sam Brock, NBC News.
Okay, turning now to Top Stories news feed, a check of other headlines around the country. We're going to start with President Trump announcing he's pardoning Texas Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar. He was indicted last year on bribery and money laundering charges, you may remember. The president also pardoned Cuellar's wife, who was facing charges as well. The couple's trial was set to begin next April. And 2 wrongful death lawsuits were filed today over that UPS cargo plane crash in Kentucky last month that killed 14 people. The lawsuits were filed by the families of 2 victims. They're accusing the company of putting profits over safety and allege that it kept flying older aircraft without increasing maintenance. UPS says it doesn't comment on pending lawsuits, but insists that safety remains its top priority. And more than 250,000 cases of shredded cheese recalled because of potential metal fragments. That's according to the FDA. Great Lakes Cheese Company issued the voluntary recall. It spans more than 30 states and impacts popular brands from Target, Aldi, and Walmart. And it took a squad of sheriff deputies to move this massive alligator off the road in Florida. Look at this. You can see them wrangling the 14-foot beast. It's a big one. Before finally lifting it up and putting it in the back of a truck. They say it weighed around 600 pounds. Wow. And has now been released at a gator farm. Okay. We're going to turn now to the nationwide debate over driverless cars and the spinal cord surgeon calling for the widespread adoption of these autonomous vehicles. You'll hear why in a moment. This as the robo-taxi company Waymo recently made some headlines for viral moments like this. We showed this to you just last night, a Waymo autonomous taxi driving right through an active police scene in L.A. with a suspect laying on the ground in the background. This one was a strange one. And there's also a federal investigation underway after a Waymo car was seen illegally passing a stopped school bus in Georgia. You know, you can't do that. The company also facing criticism from labor unions, the Boston Teamsters branch speaking out as the city council considers restrictions on autonomous vehicles, looking out for drivers there, saying in part driverless cars and trucks pose a serious threat to public safety, our communities, and the livelihoods of the countless dedicated men and women across the Commonwealth who work as professional drivers. Waymo saying in a statement to NBC Boston that its technology brings additional safety, economic activity, accessibility, and sustainable transportation to the cities where we operate. One voice, though, speaking out in favor of driverless cars, a Pennsylvania neurosurgeon who wrote this opinion piece in the New York Times after analyzing data released by Waymo. He argues that widespread adoption of driverless vehicles would lead to less traffic-related deaths and injuries. And the author of that piece, Dr. Jonathan Slotkin, with Geinzer Health Systems. He joins us live tonight here on Top Story. Dr. Slotkin, thanks so much for being here. I read your piece yesterday in the New York Times. It stood out to me. I first want to ask you before we dive into it, you're not a paid spokesman for Alphabet, for Google, or Waymo. You just looked at the data and you wanted to put this out because you're a surgeon who sees car accidents on the front lines.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you for having me, Tom. I have no financial relationship with any of those companies that you named, and I'm not invested in them either. I wrote about this because, you know, frankly, Tom, I've seen enough. I've seen enough dead people, kids who I can't save. In the piece, I wrote about a teenager who was ejected from a car and we declared him brain dead. And when I saw this data, the data stunned me.
Yeah, I want to read a piece of your essay that you put in the New York Times, put up on the screen for our viewers here. You wrote, if Waymo's results are indicative of the broader future of autonomous vehicles, we may be on the path to eliminating traffic deaths as a leading cause of mortality in the U.S. While many see this as a tech story, I view it as a public health breakthrough. Talk to me about how your experiences in hospitals led you to be an advocate for autonomous cars and why you framed this as a public health issue. Because, I mean, I don't want to say you're on an island here, but I'm in the media. I know the stories that we've done on Waymo. We've also done stories where we show that they work, especially in airports like in Phoenix. But you kind of went out on a limb here. Tell me why this was so important to you.
Yeah, you know, me and the thousands and thousands of other, you know, men and women, nurses, doctors, therapists working with trauma patients, we feel this and know this every day. We have blood on our shoes, the blood of our kids. And look, we accept 40,000 deaths a year as the price of mobility, the price of driving. And when I analyze their data, and look, you can go analyze it too. They released it, all of it, the raw data on their website. I saw that we saw greater than a 90% reduction in most types of crashes, including a 96% reduction in intersection crashes, which are some of the worst we see in the trauma bay. And look, if I or anybody else in medicine sees a treatment or a prevention that prevents 90% of trauma, we know we need it.
Did you feel you had to write this because there may be a perception that these cars are dangerous? There may be a perception that the news coverage of them is not fair. I mean, what really compelled you? Was it all public health, or were you getting concerned that maybe this type of technology, since you believe in it, was going to get sort of stonewalled in some cities? Well, you know, you mentioned some cities, and look, particularly Boston and D.C. recently, there's been coverage in the Washington Post and other papers. New York Times has covered, Boston Globe, that, you know, there are entrenched forces that have politicians' ears on this. And you mentioned some of them, and there are others. And some of these are quite moneyed. And I'm certainly aware, and it's not lost on me, that when we view this appropriately so as a safety issue, this can harden the argument, actually, against some of these other forces that have quite deep pockets and have a reason for the status quo to stay the same. And, you know, what I want people to realize is this is not a tech moonshot anymore. This is about our safety. And this is
not to go too inside baseball here, Tom, this is significant, statistically significant data that we should change what we do.
Well, it's interesting, right? Because cars have changed a lot, and there have been campaigns to wear seatbelts. I'm thinking about Ralph Nader for decades, right? And then you have cars that can automatically brake. You have cars that alert you when things are getting too close. I mean, sort of almost every car now comes with these features, but this is a whole different ballgame, right? These cars cost $100,000. And from what you're seeing, and I don't know you, but the sense I'm getting is that you're kind of over car crashes, right? You're kind of done with them because you've seen the death that they cause, the injuries that they cause. They change lives on an everyday basis kind of thing. And you're seeing something that could potentially maybe end this by 90%. America should be all in on this, but people are scared, right? They're scared because they see the stories that these cars sometimes go a little crazy. They're also putting a lot of sort of, I don't want to say faith because we put faith in technology, but I mean, driving 75, 65 miles per hour on the highway with nobody at the steering wheel. I mean, you got to have something, right? Maybe it is faith.
Well, look, the first thing I'll tell people is these vehicles, until you've experienced them, you don't know what it's like. And the first time you experience one, you will view it differently forever. That's a main piece I want to share with people. And again, I'm not associated with this company. But about fear and trepidation, let's just take base fear. It's human nature, right? And I run into this in healthcare all the time. We fear the robot that we perceive we can't control much more than the drunk driver we think we can avoid because we're a good driver, or the beer we think we can control when we drink it. But here, here's the hard truth. The robot doesn't get tired. It doesn't text. It can see in 360 degrees. It doesn't get distracted. And I get that the trepidation's real and the technology's not perfect. These technologies, they can stall or they can get confused. But when they're not perfect, the data shows so far, they're not perfect in safe and minor ways. But we know these things, they don't drive recklessly, they don't fall asleep, and they markedly and significantly decrease your chance of a serious injury or worse. So what I think we need to do, and all of us that have lived this or know it or read the data need to do, is to help people trust the math over their gut. Because right now our gut, Tom, is getting one jetliner's worth of people dropping out of the sky every day dead in automobile accidents, and 10,000 people in our emergency rooms every day.
Yeah, those are two stunning stats that you can't deny. Dr. Slotkin, thanks for coming on Top Story, and thanks for talking us through this one. We appreciate it.
Tom, thanks for having me.
Yeah, coming up next, the push for peace in Ukraine. Our Richard Engel's on the ground with the latest on the talks to end the war with Russia, plus the crash landing in China after a new rocket blasted off and its first unmanned test flight. We'll show you the dramatic fireball next. Back down with the latest on the Ukraine peace talks. Tonight, NATO representatives gathering in Belgium to discuss conditions to bring an end to the war with Russia. And the NATO Secretary General making headlines saying there's only one person in the whole world able to break the deadlock, and that is the American president. Though notably absent at this meeting, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. It comes just one day after those marathon talks between the U.S. and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow. NBC's chief international correspondent Richard Engel joins us tonight from Ukraine. Richard, I think it's important you describe to our viewers why it's so dark there behind you in Ukraine. It's obviously very late, but there's another reason, and it's important in sort of putting that into perspective into how these talks are going, because it's unclear to know if sort of the ball has moved at all.
I'm glad you mentioned that, Tom. So people talk about this war as if Russia and Ukraine are somehow on equal footing. The war is being fought inside Ukraine, on Ukrainian territory. Russia is trying to claim Ukrainian land, and for the last 4 years, this country has paid almost all of the prices in terms of damage, in terms of personnel lost. The men and women in this country are sacrificing. And yes, it's dark here right now because for the last 3 days since we've been in the city, it has been facing blackouts every night. There are also air raid sirens every night here because Russia Russian forces are continuing to attack. This is a civilian city, and they are attacking civilian infrastructure. They are attacking apartment buildings. They are attacking the heating grid. And these kind of attacks happen every single night. And what happened over the last couple of days, from this country's perspective, is that Vladimir Putin is calling the shots. It was a Russian favored proposal from the beginning. The Ukrainians were outraged, as were Ukraine's European allies, when they saw the initial draft of the peace plan that President Trump put forward. The Ukrainians worked on it twice, first in Geneva, then in Miami, to try and improve the terms. And then the deal went back to Vladimir Putin, and he rejected it. So standing here in a blacked out city, it seems very much that Vladimir Putin is calling the shots, and that it is up to Vladimir Putin to approve or deny a peace deal to potentially end this long war after hundreds of thousands of people have been killed after nearly 4 years.
And Richard, we mentioned there in the introduction about Secretary of State Marco Rubio not being there for these talks. I mean, he was present at the White House yesterday for that marathon cabinet meeting. Can we take anything from that he's not present at these meetings?
People here are reading into it. Secretary of State Marco Rubio was the only one who was talking openly about having a deal that respected Ukraine's sovereignty, having a lasting peace deal that would allow Ukraine to thrive within its borders. And he wasn't in these long talks in Moscow. Instead, it was Witkoff and Jared Kushner. Witkoff, who Ukrainians remember from just a few days ago, was heard in leaked audio appearing to coach the Russian side on how they could win over Donald Trump. The same envoy who continues to go to Moscow. He's been there more than a half dozen times, and yet officially he's never been to Ukraine. And Ukrainians are very worried that this team that was in Moscow that didn't get a yes is anxious to get a yes, that they want to please their boss, Donald Trump, and that Ukraine would potentially be sacrificed in order to get that yes, because Vladimir Putin at this stage does not appear to be budging in his initial demands.
Richard Engel for us tonight. Richard, we thank you for being there for us. All right, now to top stories, Global Watch, a check of what else is happening around the world. The first test flight for a Chinese reusable rocket ending in a fiery explosion. Look at this. You can see the unmanned rocket blasting off before something went wrong with the landing. Video shows it barreling towards the ground, erupting into a fireball. Wow. The Chinese firm Landspace says it's investigating what happened. It's trying to become just the third company to successfully test a reusable rocket. You will remember Elon Musk's SpaceX stunned the world when they first did this, and Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin just did it also. Rescue crews still searching for hundreds of missing people after last week's devastating floods and landslides in South and Southeast Asia. This is some of the destruction across parts of Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. Look at this. Many villages buried under water and mud, others without power. Between all three countries, officials say more than 1,400 people have died and around 800 are still missing. And Chile is the latest country to pass a bill banning the use of smartphones in the classroom. The new law is set to take effect next year and will apply to elementary and middle schools. Officials say it's meant to help kids stay focused and reduce the potential harmful effects of smart devices. A handful of other countries have similar restrictions, including France, Brazil, and the Netherlands. Rockefeller Center Christmas tree is ready to get lit. We'll talk to the head gardener here about how he picked this year's tree. We promise you it'll be lit up as we count down to the big moment later tonight. Don't go away. Finally tonight, the most famous tree in the world right behind me here, set to be lit in just a little bit. The 75-foot Norway spruce comes to us from upstate New York, decorated with more than 50,000 lights and a 900-pound star that will shine bright tonight and kick off the holiday season. And we're so fortunate to be joined by the man who has picked the most famous Christmas tree in the world for more than 3 decades now, our good friend, the head gardener here at Rockefeller Center, Eric Pazzi. Eric, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, bud.
So when we look at this beautiful tree here, what do you see?
I see a beautiful tree. It's perfect, 75 feet tall.
And you were just telling me it's still drinking a lot of water?
Still drinking about 15 gallons a day right now.
15 gallons a day?
Yeah.
Wow. And then how do you guys constantly fill that up? I love this part.
Well, there's actually a hose over there next to the building. We sneak out in the morning and fill it up.
And just fill it up. Okay, so what was it about this tree that stood out to you?
Oh, when I went up to see it back in July, it had a great shape. And when I got out of the car, I just knew walking to the front door to meet Judy that it was going to be perfect.
How many years had this one been growing for?
This is about 75 years old.
75 years old. She still looks great. Yep. And the family behind it was also very special, right?
Yeah, Liam and Judy are great. I had a lot of fun with Liam. We had a good time.
Little boy, and he was so excited, right, to be out here?
Yeah, I love his reaction when we told him we were going to put 50,000 lights on there.
Yes, jaw dropped, right?
Right.
So when you look at this tree, and there's a lot of pressure tonight and the lights, I mean, do you get nervous at all? I know you've been doing this for a long time.
No, we got a great bunch of professionals, and everything's going to go well.
Yeah, what is the team? What kind of team does it take to kind of get that tree perfect? And I know by myself in my house, it's hard to get the tree straight. How do you make sure you have that tree straight?
Well, we got about 35 people every day working on the tree when it gets here.
Is it leaning a little bit to the right?
I don't know. I got to maybe go on your
side.
No,
I'm joking. What else do you want people to know about this process? Because it's so special to so many around the country.
Oh, sure. It's great. It's great how everybody comes to Rockefeller Center. They share their traditions and their family traditions, and it's a lot of fun.
And then remind us, what happens after the holidays? This big, beautiful tree, it gets its moment, and then does it turn into a sofa, a kitchen table? What happens?
Well, it goes to Habitat for Humanity, and last year it was the first step on the up to the upstairs, and it got stamped with 2024 Rockefeller Tree.
That's so great. Yeah. Eric, thanks for being out here. Thanks for everything that you do. We're so looking forward to tonight. It's going to be amazing.
All right.
And she looks great, so congratulations.
Thank you, bud.
All right. And you can watch Christmas in Rockefeller Center, hosted by Reba McEntire, starting at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central, live on NBC, and streaming, of course, on Peacock. All right, that does it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching Top Story. I'm Tom Llamas, outside of Rockefeller Center. Stay right there. More news on the way. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.